I've always been decent and right, and I followed the concept of life as a man should.
Mickey Cohen, born in Brooklyn, raised in Boyle Heights, and on the wrong side of the law from the time he was 10. After Bugsy Siegel was killed, he'd become LA's mob boss. That was in 1947, just 2 years before KTTV and our many news broadcasts went on the air. Mickey was in scores of them.
Wow, right. That was quick. I hope we get away with that.
There's a reason that was quick.
That was quick. I know. That was pretty good. I was wondering what you're going to do with that. There is that other footage maybe we could show with Mike Wallace and maybe some McClellan RFK footage or
some of that we'll put up on locals after or whatever.
Guy, huh? Tough guy.
Oh, yeah, you know.
Take away your gun. No more tough guy.
Well, we'd like to actually earn a couple dollars off of the video.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Other people get away with it. Why can't we? We need, we need is a mob lawyer like Caruso, who we'll talk about later in the show. We need a mob mouthpiece like Giesler. Giesler is, they go get Giesler, the mob attorney. That was a phrase back then.
Yeah, good call. And okay, Takita, I'm going to just pull this up early. We are not preempted with the new Baldwin information, but we are doing Baldwin on Friday.
What? Oh, breaking news. This is going to be big. If I can only survive till Friday. This is great, Hunley.
No,
Baldwin alert. Baldwin alert. Calling all cars. Calling all cars. Be on the lookout. Whoop, whoop. Now, what do we got today? What are you trying to tell me? We got something else today with a mobster, right?
That's what I hear.
Right. Okay, Mickey Cohen. Mickey
That's
Cohen, Brooklyn-born Jew. Sounds familiar. Sounds like it's a bunch of these guys who end up in the limelight for such a small group of people.
And L.A. too, for God's sake.
He is the weirdest. Let me tell you something. No, and I didn't know about Mickey Cohen my whole life because I grew up. This is literally true. When I was a kid, I used to cut out the pictures of the mobsters in the 5 crime families that were in the Daily News, and I had them above my bed. Tapes to the wall, individual guys from the 5 crime families. And when they were rubbed out, I put an extra. My mother thought I was crazy. It was like collecting baseball cards. So, like Kid Blast Gallo killed on a road and outside of Monticello. Whoop, gets an extra one. But they still stayed up there, Eric. But that being said, I didn't know anything about West Coast.
Did you play bingo?
What do you mean? Not really. No,
it would have been funny if you were like, okay, that's 3 at an angle. Bingo.
No, I didn't do that. I collected them on the wall like baseball cards, and they had the 5 crime families. And the Daily News was great, not better than the Post back then about mafia crime. But that being said, this guy, Mickey Cohen, and his father drops dead, has a heart attack or something, and the mother has got like 7 kids. She leaves about, 3 or 4 of them in Brooklyn and New York, scatters them around with relatives, and takes him and his sister and 2 brothers and goes to Boyle Heights, which was a Jewish ghetto in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, actually, in L.A. Goes all the way out here. And that's where the story kind of starts. But I didn't know there was even the mob out here.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's the extension of Vegas, wasn't it?
No, the reverse. In fact, when they're kicked out, that's where they go. You'll see in the story. Vegas becomes a spinoff when they clean up L.A. But the point of the matter is Mickey gets involved early on. He can't read or write. He gets kicked out of school. He's fighting all the time. His mother opens up a grocery store to feed the family, and has a grocery store business, surprisingly, on Brooklyn Avenue in Boyle Heights. There's a Brooklyn Avenue in Boyle Heights, I guess, hearkening back to the time when they all came out, from Brooklyn and the Great Migration, of the Jews. But yeah, his family was Orthodox Jew, deeply religious, came from a place called Kiev in the Ukraine.
Heard of that?
Yes. And
was it in the news recently?
Recently in the news, in Kiev, which may not be part of Ukraine much longer. They may vote to leave Ukraine and join Russia. You know what I mean? They should have a plebiscite in Kiev, see how many votes to go. But The reality of it is he is unchaperoned. His brother, older brother, becomes a father figure, and his older brother is a crook and a bandit himself. So he learns the trade from his brother. And in back of the grocery store, they open up a drugstore run by the brothers, and it's really a still selling prohibition liquor out of this drugstore in the back of the grocery store. So he's involved with crime at a very early age, Mickey.
Okay, so let's see. What we put? When was that? That had to be in the 30s then, if you're talking about prohibition.
Yes, yeah. Everything that's happening is in the 30s with prohibition. Yeah, and then obviously the mob moves in, and the Detroit mob starts selling liquor because it's so close to Canada. Seagrams and some of these other groups are literally shipping it across from Windsor. And then it's out in LA. What they did was they set up they bought these boats or tankers, decorated them, put lights on them and all kinds of stuff, and put them outside the 3 mile limit. Yeah. And took everybody out. Yeah. They took everybody out in motorboats out to these gambling floating barges to beat the man at his own game. So Mickey gets early on involved in that. But yeah, I mean, today's Yiddish word of the day, Eric, is starka.
Starka?
Say this, starka.
Starka.
Mickey was a starka.
Okay.
And the people at home, Happy New Year, by the way, to everybody in the chat who's celebrating Rosh Hashanah. But today's Yiddish word, starka, means tough guy. And Mickey Cohen was the ultimate starka. And here he is with the Jewish star, with it'll say MC in the middle of that Star of David there. He was a bantamweight boxer. Apparently his brother was one of his brothers was a trainer in Cleveland. And he goes on the road to fight legitimate fights. You know, he becomes a legitimate fighter and has a number of bouts, which takes him around the country and exposes him to the mob. And that's how Mickey Cohen gets exposed to the mob, because he fights and the mob is controlling the fights. And right, that's how he gets rolled into the mob. And his idol becomes Al Capone. And he kind of looks like Al Capone, only he's a miniature Al Capone. A lot of these guys are miniature versions of people. I don't know, like Carlos Marcello, Hoffa. You ever see the size of these guys?
I thought Hoffa was short.
They all are. I mean, Mickey Cohen, Hoffa, Carlos Marcello.
Capone.
What's that?
I thought Capone was too.
Right. He kind of dresses like Capone. And he becomes, before he's a fighter, he becomes a newspaper salesman. And I mean, what I mean by newspaper salesman is he sits outside of the LA Examiner on a stack of newspapers so they don't blow away, and gives them to the person and takes the money. And that's what I mean by newspaper salesman as a kid. So he takes the money, and one woman comes up to him in a fur coat, some attractive, wealthy woman, and he has ink on his hands all day from the paper, because he's sleeping in the Herald Examiner bathroom, waiting for the papers to come out so we could sell them for money. He did a million little things to get money for the family. They were so impoverished that he did all these criminal things really for the family, Eric. You know, all these different scams. But one of them is working to sell the LA Examiner, which was a Hearst paper, by the way, not like the LA Times. So this woman, he gives her the newspaper, and she says, what dirty little hands you have, little boy. And he freaks out, runs into the bathroom, and washes his hands to get them clean, because the woman humiliated him. This woman with a fur stole on, with a hat, and she said, what dirty little hands you have, little boy. And it haunted him for the rest of his life. That one line by that woman would torture him for the rest of his existence. We'll get into how that happened. But he runs in and washes his hands. Right. And he doesn't realize that it's the ink from the newspapers. So he sells a couple more papers. He looks at his hands, and they're black again. So what does he do? He runs into the bathroom in the Herald Examiner in the ground floor, washes his hands nonstop, and he gets it with the soap. He gets it off. Anyway, this leads to OCD for Mickey Cohen. And the OCD, which I'll explain in a little while, is so profound and so incredible that you're not going to believe the levels of the OCD of Mickey Cohen. We're going to get to that when he gets older. But right now, getting back to his boxing career, Eric, he gets involved with these different mobsters, and he's not a corrupt fighter. You know, he likes to fight. He loves fighting. And he realizes that his career is not in boxing. And in between boxing bouts, and he goes and does stick-up jobs, right?
You got that hobby.
Friend Mike Tyson told me that he did. It was the exact same thing that Mike Tyson told me he did. When Mike Tyson was up in Catskill, New York with Stompanato, he told me he went back. I went back to Red Hook on the weekend, Mark, because I love the excitement. And I said, Mike, you had everything taken care of. I mean, you had Stompanato, a place to live. He was giving you pocket money. He fed you. I mean, you had an entire family. I know, but I like the excitement, Mark. I had to do it. And that's what Mickey Cohen did. That's exactly what Mickey Cohen did. He did stick-up jobs in between fights.
Wow. Now, did that lead to his first time in or no?
No. His first.
Oh,
arrest,
no, that was later. That's right.
Yeah,
that's
his
right.
first arrest is many years later. He does not get pinched for a long, long time. In fact, he has very few arrests on his record. I mean, he's got 3 major arrests. I think he was in jail 3 times. 2 for tax evasion, 1 for maybe this photo that you have of him, like a Scarface Al Capone photo.
No, I mean, come on. That's a badass looking dude.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But I mean, this guy loved to brawl, and he was a fighter. And it could be because of his diminutive stature. Could be the same thing with Carlos Napoleon thing. Yeah. I mean, I don't understand it other than he got the shit beaten out of him as a kid and didn't like it. I think we've all been through that. Everybody, as somebody once said, everybody takes a beating now and then. Isn't that from the Rittenhouse trial? That guy was, remember that?
Oh, God, yeah, Binger.
Right. Everybody, yeah. No, the other guy, not
Oh, no,
partner.
oh, sorry. Oh, yeah.
Remember
yeah,
he
yeah,
said
yeah.
everybody takes a
Big
beating
boy.
now and then. Yeah, the big boy.
Big boy.
Anyway, so yeah, this is the early Mickey Cohen, and he was a fighter his whole life. And this will come up later. He punches DEA agents in the face. He punches people in the face repeatedly. There was one time years later when he was in a restaurant with Sammy Davis Jr. and Sinatra, and a waiter spilled some coffee on his sleeve, and he just gets up and punches him in the face in front of all these people. And unfortunately for Mickey, the waiter was a criminal and punched him back in the face, and then a brawl ensued. But that's a story for another day.
It makes me think of Joe Pesci and
Joe Pesci and Goodfellas.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
fire.
You know, I'll tell you something I just learned recently in my gangland research, which I'll reveal right now, just because you brought it up. Remember how Joe Pesci is whacked in Goodfellas? They walks into the house and they shoot him in the back of the head. De Niro goes to the phone booth and says that he's told there's nothing we could do. He's gone. What's done is done, right? And it was a phony made man thing. That is not how Pesci died, the character, in real life. In real life, they took him and his brother out to Idaho and buried them alive, Iowa, and buried them alive in a cornfield. That is not Goodfellas. That was made up. In real life, you kind of see it at the end of Casino when he's buried in that ditch. That is the way he ended up in Goodfellas, but they did what they did for movie reasons with Nicholas Pileggi. I just found that out recently from a mobster who apparently knows the true story. So I didn't dispute it. But that being said,
So it's even worse, is what you're saying.
it's even worse. Well, I don't know. You get shot in the back of the head or buried alive. I mean, I don't know what's worse.
Well, yeah, one lasts a little bit longer, dude. I mean,
They put his brother in there too. I mean, his brother, who's not in Goodfellas, was pretty bad. But yeah, so Mickey begins to form a crew, and he goes back to LA after this fighting stuff has expired. But he has fights in LA, and the LA fights expose him to the mob in LA, which is really just this guy, Jack Dragna, by himself, And of course, this guy who comes out from Brooklyn, Bugsy Siegel. Ben Siegel comes out, and there's Bugsy. I was going to wear that jacket. I have one of those just like that. That's
Of course you do.
I was going to wear that today, but it may look out of style. But these guys, I don't even know how to explain this. Bugsy Siegel, Ben Siegel, these are not gangsters like we know it. The reason you didn't hear about these guys is because they were so entwined in the life of LA as to be regular citizens. Johnny Roselli, Bugsy Siegel, Mickey Cohen, these guys, and later Jimmy the Weasel Fradiani will come out. But these guys are so enmeshed in the nightlife and life of Los Angeles and Hollywood in particular that they never take a pinch, and they're never, everyone knows they're gangsters. It's not even a debate. They are, it's hard to wrap your mind around this. 1940s LA. I mean, if you look at LA Confidential, you'll see really what's going on, because LA Confidential, slightly rewritten from the James Ellroy novel, is really the story of the corrupt LAPD, every one of them on the take, every one of them owned by the mob, and, you know, involved in high class prostitution in apartments. I mean, really high class gambling. Like if you take a place, there's a photo I gave you of a place called the Clover Club on Sunset. The Clover Club was one of Mickey's hangouts, right? So this is, if there's a shot of that Clover. Yeah, here's one. They had orchestras with Alice Faye and you know, beautiful setup, but in the back, through double doors, through two-way mirrors, through different rooms, was a massive gambling casino. You would never know from the front of this building. So who goes to this casino? All the heads of the studios. They're all involved. This is not riffraff. It's hard today to really understand how intertwined this was in Hollywood life. They were getting girls for them. They were gambling with them. Mickey was involved as a second in command. He was a second banana to Bugsy Siegel. But Siegel's influence is so enormous, it's hard to really even compare it to anyone, because he's, you know, going on trips to Paris with the heads of the studios. Think about a mobster. Think about John Gotti doing this with, you know, big shots in New York. Would never happen. Would never happen. Bugsy Siegel is going, you know, horseback riding. He's going on trips to the Swiss Alps with these people, Bugsy Siegel.
Was that unique to Prohibition too in some ways, though? Because they would get the stuff that they wanted.
This is into the 40s, Eric. This is
really?
past this now. Yeah, this is not Prohibition any longer. They are supplying betting on, they run the tracks, the 3-4 tracks in LA and the surrounding areas. They run prostitution. They run gambling throughout Los Angeles. And I mean, there's 88 cities in LA County, and they own the 88 different cities they're running. That's just LA County, not to mention Orange County. They're going all the way down to Mexico, this Bugsy Siegel organization. And obviously, Bugsy is representing the crime families back east. So Bugsy's not doing this on his own. When Bugsy shows up from back east, Jack Dragna, if you have a picture of Jack, he was the lowly mob guy that people tolerated, the Sicilian guy. There he is. It's Jack Dragna.
He looks mob.
Yeah, but he was a poor man's joke of a mobster. This guy had he had a couple of bookie joints, and Mickey Cohen shows up and walks into his bookie joint one day and robs them of all their money. And they go, "You can't do that." He goes, "Yeah, I just did it. Go fuck yourself." I mean, that's how rough these guys were compared to Jack Dragna and the groups that were out here before Siegel and Mickey Cohen. Now, Siegel, of course, will begin to get involved in building the Flamingo Hotel, and that will lead to the end of Bugsy Siegel. Bugsy Siegel, though, is dating and going out with the most beautiful actresses, all name actresses in Hollywood. It's on the front page of these papers. It's in the Hollywood Reporter, and nobody skips a beat over this thing. I mean, imagine if John Gotti, you know, was dating Sissy Spacek or something. You know what I mean? Sure. I mean, right? I mean, it just couldn't be imagined. But Bugsy Siegel, who was, had blue eyes, was this handsome rake of a man who was absolutely still talked like a gangster, just like Mickey Cohen did. They still sounded like gangsters. They were still illiterate. But they had a certain charm to them that was able to con and hustle and get them where they were. He was so smooth, Bugsy Siegel. They lived these huge lifestyles in the middle of Beverly Hills, Eric. They lived among the hoi polloi. They didn't live somewhere out of town in some shanty or something. They lived right in the middle of the wealthiest people in Los Angeles.
Oh, if they're accepted. I mean,
and they were accepted. That's the point I'm trying to make. They were accepted. Now, Bugsy Siegel begins to raise money for the Flamingo. And the Flamingo Hotel becomes this giant boondoggle where he constantly needs another 20 million. I mean, these numbers are astronomically insane, how much money he puts into the Flamingo Hotel. Virginia Hill, who's his girlfriend, obviously depicted in the movie, everybody's seen that, with Warren Beatty. His girlfriend goes to Switzerland and opens up Swiss bank accounts and takes out a long-term lease on an apartment in Zurich. So the mob gets hip to this, and they realize that his girlfriend is skimming money off this incredible Flamingo bill, where they're pouring money into the Flamingo from all the crime families around the country. Detroit, everybody's throwing in money because it's so big. And this is going to be the first hotel in Vegas. So they realize that if his girlfriend's doing it, in the movie it's depicted she's doing it without his knowledge. The mob didn't care about that. The mob assumed that he was in on it. Now, they could have been wrong. It didn't matter. But that's what signed Bugsy Siegel's death warrant. That's what killed him. So. Yeah, because they just said, look, it's him. It's your problem. I don't know who's stealing the money. And it really was her, but I think he was in love with her, and whatever happened, he was aware of it or not. But they hire a guy, a sharpshooter, to wait for him. He came back. He was supposed to take his daughters on a ski trip to Canada. His daughters were there's the Flamingo. It finally does open. It opens up for a couple of nights. The rooms aren't ready. There's water leaking in the place, and they have to close it down within one night, the first night it opens. It closes for a few months and then reopens completely differently and becomes a success, and hence begins to spawn off other hotels and becomes Vegas as we know it. But Bugsy Siegel's not going to live to see that, because Bugsy has a big price to pay. And they bring in a sharpshooter who waits outside in the bushes outside his house. And because of his gorgeous blue eyes, this is hard to believe, the sharpshooter shoots him right through the eye and kills him with a high-powered rifle.
Ouch.
Yeah. Shoots him right through the eye. Now, Mickey Cohen is not involved in this, but he's aware of it. And it's an order from back east. It's got nothing to do with Mickey Cohen. And Mickey Cohen famously says, the death of Bugsy Siegel was not so bad for me. Meaning he's now the king of L.A. Because Bugsy, that's what he said. He was correct.
Well, he wasn't involved too, especially so
right.
It fell in his lap.
It was a contract killing. It was a contract killing. So as soon as Bugsy Siegel is dead, Mickey Cohen becomes the king of Los Angeles. And that's where things get freaking crazy, because his arch nemesis is this guy, Jack Dragna. Now, Jack Dragna does not like Mickey Cohen. He couldn't touch Bugsy Siegel because Bugsy Siegel had too many friends, Meyer Lansky and some of these other guys back east. But Mickey Cohen, he hated Mickey Cohen because he remembered he robbed that betting parlor and that bookie joint, and he never forgot that. So he begins the Battle of Sunset Strip. Now, Mickey Cohen it opens up a haberdashery later on Sunset Boulevard. The Strip is, to the people who haven't been out here, Sunset Strip is a short little piece of turf on Sunset Boulevard before you get to Beverly Hills in Hollywood. And it's got some really high-priced restaurants. It's got some high-priced residences and some very, very high-priced stores. And that's the Sunset Strip. That's a separate little strip. And it's like an unincorporated world there. The sheriff's department ran it. It wasn't LAPD. That was run by the sheriff's department, and they weren't on the take, as a matter of fact. But the LAPD was. And in fact, there's the movie Gangster Squad, and even LA Confidential. Is the LA Confidential storyline is really the Gangster Squad that takes the gloves off, and they're told by the chief of police, anything goes. I don't care how you deal with this. They remove their names from the roster of LAPD like they never existed. They become the LAPD intelligence unit, but that's in the 50s and 60s. The Gangster Squad, aka the Hat Squad, before that, another movie I think I think it was Mulholland Drive. You see a bunch of them there in that movie. But the Hat Squad, the Gangster Squad, that's who Bud White is when you're looking at LA Confidential. That's who Russell Crowe is. Now, Guy Pearce will become the chief of police. That guy will grow up to be the chief of police, who becomes the arch nemesis of Mickey Cohen, and that's William Parker. And you know that Parker. Okay, this is, I don't know what that is right there.
Sunset Strip.
Oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah,
just to get something up, you know.
Right, that's kind of interesting. Okay, so Mickey Cohen is coming out of a place called Sherry's. Now, Sherry's was this after-hours joint, also on Sunset Strip, where Mickey always ended up at 4:00 in the morning. And Mickey has federal agents as bodyguards now, ex-federal agents. He's got his own men as bodyguards. He's got the press with him wherever he goes, because they're following him around because he's so colorful that they follow him around all night, club hopping. They just go with him and they go, all right, what do you make of this, Mickey? And he goes, oh, I think this is a great tribute to the music of, Charlie Parker or something. So they write down whatever quote he has. So they come out of Sherry's, like 10, 12 people, like a crew. And Jack Dragna and his men start shooting every single one of them. The federal agent takes a bullet to the stomach. Mickey takes a shot to the shoulder. The LA Examiner woman gets shot in the ass. All of them. There's like 8 people wounded in this shootout. And that begins the Battle of Sunset Strip right then and there at Sherry's restaurant.
I imagine so.
Right. It's funny because they were all working together to save their own lives. His bodyguards were dragging the federal agents into a car to save them from getting shot. The intertwining of police and mobsters and the studio people back then is inseparable. It's inseparable. You cannot detach them. They were friends. They were trying to take each other down. They worked together. They ratted on each other.
So frenemies. They were the absolute definition.
Yeah, frenemies, right. So Mickey Cohen has a TV in his house, and a guy shows up. The TV's always on the fritz. The guy comes to fix the TV every week, and he tips the guy like $20, $30, right? And the guy turns out to be from the Hat Squad, LAPD, and he's putting in new batteries to replace the tape recorder batteries that are in the TV set in his house, unbeknownst to Mickey. And they all had these wire guys. They all had their Pelicanos of the 1940s, who were the state-of-the-art guys in how to wiretap and do that kind of stuff, Eric. And those guys were making about $100,000 a year from the mobsters, and worked for the cops, and did it for the cops too, and for the FBI, and sold tapes to each of them. I mean, they were like the Grateful Dead tape heads. They passed these tapes around. So Mickey begins to get into obviously bookmaking, which was one of his main things. Obviously, prostitution, even though he denied it. By the way, he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, and he doesn't take drugs his entire life. The one thing he does do is the compulsivities that I'm now going to get into, which are so insane that you're just going to have to roll with me on this, because this is the facts of OCD on steroids of Mickey Cohen. Okay, you ready? You ready?
I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
Okay. He would take a shower every day for 3 hours. 3 hours the shower. No, don't even do that face, Eric. He would then get out of the shower onto a bunch of towels, and the first thing he would put on was his hat, naked, right? Then this is after 3 hours in the shower every day. He would then cover himself with talcum powder with 2 or 3 bottles of baby powder all over his body. Just like a cloud would form inside the bathroom. Okay. Then he'd have to wipe off the walls of all the dust from the baby powder. Then he would he'd slide his feet into some shoes and then eventually leave the bathroom to go into the bedroom to begin to put on his clothing at this point. Now, he's got the hat on already. I don't know why he did the hat first, but he did this every single day. So the place that he was living initially, they ran out of hot water. He lived in a luxury apartment building on Doheny or Barrington or something, and they ran out of hot water. So they installed a giant hot water heater from a hotel, and they put that in the basement. So I swear to God, so he could take a shower for 3 hours every day. Then he changed his clothes 5 times a day. He had hundreds of suits, hundreds of shirts, hundreds of socks, all different kinds of shoes, changed his clothes 5 times a day. He'd get back in the shower. Yeah, this is him in his office in the house. This is in Brentwood. That was the desk that he worked out of. All of that stuff. He was a clothing freak on steroids in terms of hats. Going back to being 14 years old, he would rob a store just to buy a hat, and the shoes. He had $500 shoes based on today's money, and these suits that had like that suit there on the left-hand shoulder underneath was a custom-made pocket to put his gun in. If you can imagine that, built into the suit. I mean, it's just astounding the level of accoutrements that were used by Mickey Cohen in terms of dressing and living large. And he was not living over his head. I mean, this house in Brentwood that he had in the neighborhood was a very expensive home, and he's always lived large because one of his side things was loaning money. And everybody owed him money all the time. And he would borrow money. A lot of mobsters did this. They would borrow money from anybody and never pay him back. He would just go, I need $1,000. Can you loan me $1,000? And they go, it was really a shakedown, Eric. It was really a shakedown. And they would loan him $1,000 and he would never pay it back. On the other hand, he loaned money to legitimate people who did pay him back. And that includes, people who were studio heads. And those people, in other words, he was running that business too.
Mm. Well, everything looks immaculate in that room in that picture.
He was, let me tell you something. There were so many famous Hollywood people who went to that house, including the production designer for a movie called Apocalypse Now. And he went to that house and he said, everything was custom built. There were hidden drawers behind drawers and boxes and shelves, and everything swung out. And he had this place custom built. There were secret panic rooms behind the painting over there, Eric, in case his house was raided by his enemies or the police. And he would go into these different rooms. And this was in Brentwood. So, again, in this battle of Sunset Strip with Dragna, he is the attempts on assassinations. There were 11 attempts to kill him, and none of them worked. And one of them that Jack Dragna did was, and his son, was to put dynamite under the bedroom of that house in Brentwood, and to make sure, because they had put a dud in there before, they had put a bomb that didn't go off. So Dragna, father and son, put 30 sticks of dynamite with 2 fuses underneath his bedroom on the extreme left-hand side of the house. And maybe you could show a photo of the results of that explosion. Now, in there,
he's pissed off that his clothes are messed up, it looks like.
Right. In there, in that black arrow, is Mickey Cohen examining his suits. And he was pissed off that his suits got blown up, right? But his wife had another master bedroom on the other side of the house, and he slept in that bedroom with her by accident this particular night. This is a cat with obviously 11 lives, because they almost kill him 11 times. And that pissed them off about the suits. Now, it turns out that the bomb was blocked by his safe. Yeah, this is before the bombing, obviously. Right. This is the closet with his suits and shoes.
I like the glass doors. Good.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. But this is after bathing for 3 hours. This is the part where you put the shoes on, right? And this all goes back to the OCD of that woman saying you have dirty little hands, little boy. And his fanatical washing of the hands in his haberdashery on Sunset Boulevard, when Jack Dragna shows up with two killers, they come into the store, and where is Mickey Cohen? He's in the bathroom washing his hands, and his men get shot. They're in the front of the store. He just hears this and takes his gun, and he goes out and starts shooting at Dragna's men, and he gets one of them, right? But if it wasn't for his OCD, washing his hands repeatedly, he would have been killed by Jack Dragna that particular day in Michael's, his haberdashery.
Talking about reinforcing bad habits.
It's really interesting how he that one line from that woman was able to create OCD in his mind, and how much it affected him mentally. But
it depends on the age, and
I think he might have been 9 or 8 or something when it happened. And
fetishes, I think, start that way too. They talk about, like, if you're at the right point of development and like exposed to a foot or a shoe or or whatever, that locks into people.
Well, one night at this place, Sherry's restaurant, Shirley Temple shows up. This is the adult Shirley Temple, right? The movie star, the adult Shirley Temple. And she comes out and the valet gives her this 1950 Cadillac, which is hers. It's like a dark blue caddy. And she starts driving down Sunset, and she looks on the seat, and there's a fedora, and she looks in the back, and there's a machine gun in a case. And she goes, "What the fuck?" So she drives all the way back to the restaurant, where there's a panicked valet who has given her Mickey Cohen's Cadillac instead of her own. And the guy is shitting bricks. So Shirley Temple Black has to switch caddies. This is the actual caddy, 1950 Cadillac Fleetwood of Mickey Cohen. And the reason this is important is it is completely bulletproofed and has steel reinforced doors, bomb-proof from the bottom, tires that were apparently undeflatable by projectiles. I'm not sure how that worked. Reinflatable tires, bulletproof glass all the way around. And this was given to him and tested at the LAPD firing range before he gave it to him. And a judge, okay, this is really weird. To have an armored car in LA or California, you had to get permission of a judge or a license, like an armored car. You couldn't just drive around an armored car. That's why when Snoop Dogg had an armored car at the Grammys, he was pulled over by LAPD because you can't just get an armored car. It's illegal. So
why? This is weird.
You have to have a license to have an armored vehicle. It's because I think it's because of armored trucks being unlicensed as a company. You know what I mean? Like Brinks probably stopped other competitors by having a licensed Brinks armored truck. Probably. I'm not sure. But anyway, so the judge prevents him from driving his own car because he says, if you can bring into this court who allowed you to have it bullet tested at the LAPD firing range, I will give you your vehicle. So Mickey didn't want to rat out the corrupt cop that allowed him to bring it to the firing range. So this car ends up in the great state of Texas in a car museum. And if you look on the bottom left, you'll see Texas plates. And Mickey had never got to use the bulletproof car, which he loved. He had custom made his own, which had phony floorboards with Tommy guns in it and special windows. He had rigged up his own. But this one he never got to drive, and that ended up in Texas in a car museum. I don't know if it's still there or not, but the reason that Mickey Cohen begins to get revered is because of the strikes against the studio system in the 1940s. The strikes by the unions against the studios becomes the communists begin to infiltrate the studio system, and that's where the House Un-American Activities Committee goes. That's where the Hollywood 10 come in, Eric, and they begin to form strikes against the moguls. The moguls freak out, and they go to Mickey Cohen, and they say, "Can you help us, Mickey, please?" And Mickey Cohen, with his boys, ends the strikes against the studio moguls, and he is forever in their debt because he ended those strikes. It got so bad that the president of the Screen Actors Guild had to wear a holster and carry a gun underneath his coat. And this was a Democratic liberal guy who did this because he was afraid he was going to get shot. And that guy's name was Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
All right. So you know where these
That was
threads
back
go.
when he was a Democrat, correct?
A Democratic liberal and the president of the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah.
They were trying to get him to stop the riots and demonstrations, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it.
Amazing. So is this when he did a little testifying? I think we have some video on that. I don't know.
You mean Mickey Cohen?
Yeah, when he pled the fifth, or is that later? I'm trying to get some.
That's 1959. That's a little later with Robert Kennedy. Yeah,
Cool.
that's near the end. But he goes to jail. This is kind of interesting. They got him on tax evasion, and the first time he's sentenced, I think, to 2 or 3 years tax evasion, and he gets sent to Terminal Island. And he makes it work. He gets his own cell. He gets custom-made furniture. He gets his own chef. I mean, no, dude, this is crazy, right? He makes all these new friends in prison. And this is McNeil, where a guy named Charles Manson went. McNeil Island, Terminal Island. And he makes all these new friends there. He gets out, and he needs somebody to sponsor him for parole, right? And the sponsor is a guy named Reverend Billy Graham. Billy Graham says, pays his debts, and gives him $50,000 to appear with him at Madison Square Garden. And I'm going to tell you this right now. This Billy Graham, nobody hated the Jews more than Billy Graham. And why do we know this? Because on the Nixon tapes, the great audio tapes of Richard Nixon and Billy Graham, nobody spoke more anti-Semitically than Reverend Billy Graham. And it was front page news when the tapes came out. He said the Jews were strangling this country. They were pornographers. They were Satanists. And Nixon's going, really? You think so? Really? You really think so, Reverend? And he says, oh, yeah, Mr. President, it's the Jews. And he just goes on and on, Billy Graham, about the Jews. And so that comes out like 1976, 78. And it's a huge scandal for Billy Graham. Huge scandal. First, he denies saying it, and it's in Haldeman's book. The Haldeman Diary book are the transcripts of the Reverend Billy Graham talking to Richard Nixon about the Jews. So Haldeman, but that's in print, Eric. That's in print. But when the audio tapes come out, that's it. That's it. And I remember, and everybody remembers who was around listening to those tapes, going, holy crap, this is amazing. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you that is he tells Mickey Cohen that he wants him to convert to Christianity, give up Judaism, and come with him on stage at Madison Square Garden. He's paid him $50,000. He puts him up at the Waldorf. Mickey's having a party there, and Mickey's rolling him. So he pays off, he gets him $5,000 in cash for walking around money. And Mickey comes out on the stage, 18,000 people, Madison Square Garden with Reverend Billy Graham. And he says, I don't think so. he reneges on the deal. And he says, I'm a Jew. I'm not giving it up. He said, I'm not that religious, but this is the religion I came with. And this is the religion I'm going to go with. And he is furious, Reverend Billy Graham. He has just been rolled by one of the best gangsters in American history, Mickey Cohen. And he's now out, and he's not in jail anymore. And he begins to borrow money from his friends who are more than happy to loan him money. He's got a wife named Lovan. I don't know if there's some pictures of them at home you might want to show about Lovan and the dogs now. Tuffy, the boxers. Jews love boxers, by the way. And I mean boxer dogs, not boxer fighters. This is LaVon Cohen, his wife. This is inside this Brentwood home. I mean, look at this digs that she's there reading a book.
You can tolerate it.
Yeah, I mean, this is really some palatial place. Here she's knitting a chicken or something. I don't know what she's doing here, but she used to come off as if that she was like this matronly woman. But it turns out, upon further examination years later, when they get divorced, this is in the backyard. Look at that boxer. Look how cute the big boxer. Then he's got a little Frenchie there. But that's Tuffy, The big boxer, the girl on the bottom, Tuffy will be in trouble later when Mickey goes to Alcatraz. But he will come out and get Mickey Jr., which is an English bulldog later when he gets out of prison. But right now, those two boxers are the love of his life. And they have all kinds of, custom-made bed for them and all this other stuff. But LaVon, over there on the left, turns out that she's not so innocent. She had been a prostitute at the age of 14 and had been arrested a number of times from the Midwest. And she came off as this innocent, matronly woman. And when Mickey divorces her, when Mickey goes to prison, she doesn't have the money of Mickey anymore. And she, a lot of stuff comes out about her later on. But yeah, this is the backyard of the house that's going to be blown up on that right-hand side over there of the house where that other bedroom is.
Well, there was a reason he was in her bedroom.
I don't know. It's kind of weird because a lot of people, he starts dating Candy Bar, and he's married, but he has Candy Bar, Liz Renee. He's with all these incredible hot women. There he is with Candy Bar, Juanita Slusher from Texas, and Candy Bar links Mickey Cohen to Jack Ruby because Candy Bar is like the #1 stripper in the West, and she works for Jack Ruby. So now you've got some connection here to the JFK assassination because Candy Bar is jailed for having 3/4 of an ounce of marijuana, and she's sent to women's federal prison. Candy Bar is. And when Jack Ruby kills Lee Harvey Oswald, the FBI tracks down Candy Bar to ask her if Jack Ruby had told her he was going to do this. And of course, she said, I didn't know anything about it. Maybe we have some footage of her at work on her day job.
And that's enough for YouTube.
Well, we'll cut it right there for YouTube. But I think you get the general idea.
Yeah, she continues.
She continues and develops an incredible career, Candy Bar, as does Liz Renee, who's more of a B movie star. There's a photo, I think, of Mickey and Liz Renee having ice cream sodas. All he cared about was chocolate ice cream. That was his #1 addiction besides washing his hands. He would take people out to these soda fountains. He would later open up his own a soda fountain store or whatever that is, a cafe kind of a thing in Brentwood. But after the explosion of his house, the neighbors try to force him out to no avail, and he has somebody write this long-winded letter. But he begins dating Liz Renee, who was a 1950s B-level bombshell, poor man's Jane Mansfield, if you could imagine that. But he is really a gentleman with these women. And the women, like Liz Renee said, he never even put a hand on her. That he was, he liked being with these girls, but it was almost for publicity purposes, Eric.
I was going to say, okay, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but somebody that has that much OCD and is that much of a clean freak, I have a feeling he probably never touched them.
He said, why should I kiss these girls? They're dirty. And that quote stayed in my mind for years. Why would I kiss them? They're dirty. Now, keep in mind, as a young man, he had a number of bad cases of gonorrhea, which may also have led to the OCD. Yeah, that may also have led to the OCD because of the gonorrhea. So he may have been gun shy, if you understand. Gun shy, like gun shy.
That's horrible, but yes, I got it.
Well, I got away with it. I still pulled it off. It'll be in our greatest hits album. But
I'm sure.
The reality of it is, he goes out with these girls. He's not a publicity seeker. It's more like he weaves the publicity into his world, and he's not a wannabe anything. He is Mickey Cohen. Oh yeah, is that Liz Renee?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was yeah. Oh yeah, very interesting photo of her. I liked her a lot.
Mark approves.
I approved of that one. Yeah, there's some other ones of Liz Renee interviewed when she was much older. That
is her older, dude.
I know.
Which
She always
is
seemed to be
remarkable.
that age. She always seemed to be in her late 40s or 50s. I don't know if she was ever younger because she was not in show business in her 20s and 30s. She shows up in Hollywood much later in life, Liz Renee, which is a separate story. But I mean, the candy bar thing to Jack Ruby is an amazing thing because now, in 1959, if you could show the tape now of Robert Kennedy and him, you might see the relevance between all of these guys. The threads, as for you people to connect, Eric and I just putting these dots down now of all these weird dots of RFK, Jack Ruby, Candy Bar, Mickey Cohen.
Somebody testified here that you were a very polite gentleman. Can't you say I respectfully decline to answer instead of I refuse?
I can, but I don't know if I'll remember it, Senator.
I'll have to. You got something down there to remember?
I'll put it down.
Okay, well, you get the idea. Just so you know,
I love that line.
Yeah, it's a great line because until the age of 31, Mickey Cohen could not read, write, or count money. And part of it was dyslexia. Part of it was, having these illnesses. But he would pay off his fellow hoodlums by taking the money of whatever heist they were pulling off and putting them in picture order, 10s, 20s, 1s, and then seeing what stack it was. And then one by one, he would go, one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me, like 10s, 20s, and 5s or whatever it was. And he said they did not know that he couldn't read the numbers on the money. He did not know what a 10, 20, and in fact, he was one of the biggest tippers in the history of Hollywood. He would give out hundreds to everyone. He had a roll of money that he rolled up, not flat, folded. He rolled it like this with a rubber band, and he would peel off, and he didn't know what he was peeling off, Eric. So he'd give a valet 100. That's like $700 today in our money. I mean, these insane numbers. But anyway, so he becomes this huge tipper, and he gets involved in these racket hearings. And that's like pretty late in 1959, McClellan hearings that have Kefauver, Robert Barnes' old friend from Tennessee, and a general chief counsel named Robert F. Kennedy. Now, his brother's sitting there behind him as the junior senator from the state of Massachusetts. But John Kennedy smartly does not get embroiled with these gangsters like Bobby does with Marcello and Hoffa and Mickey Cohen, one after another. He just berates them simply because there's space there because they're taking the fifth. So what he does is, because they're taking the fifth, he's got space to taunt them, because they're not answering the question. So he just goes, do you like to giggle, Mr. Hoffa? Is that what little girls do? You like to giggle? And he goes, I respectfully decline to take the thing. Blah, blah, blah. So he would get these jokes off, and was not a fan, obviously, of these mobsters. But before that, Mickey Cohen hooks up with a guy, and this is where it gets really interesting. Another guy, because he's got his own crew. And his crew, some Jews, some Italians. It's a mix. It's an ethnic mix. And he hooks up with a guy named Johnny Stompanato. And Johnny Stompanato is kind of like his bodyguard, friend, muscle. But Stompanato is not really a killer. He's a lover. The guy on the left is Johnny Stompanato, and he
looks pretty.
He is. He's involved. Just so people know, he's involved in running girls out of Nevada into Hollywood, getting prostitutes. He's involved in arranging for abortions down in Mexico. He's involved as a gigolo, bisexual. His nickname is Oscar because his member between his legs is the size of the Oscar statuette. You can't make this up. So this is also at Mickey's place there. That's his attorney, one of his attorneys. We're going to get into one of the other attorneys later, but this is one of his early attorneys. He had a bunch of different attorneys. But Stompanato begins to date every celebrity woman in Hollywood who is an actress. And it's on the front page of the Daily Variety. Johnny Stompanato is dating. Here is Mickey, and they were testifying in some court case about something, but the two of them were together. And he really likes Stompanato as a friend. And Stompanato is, of course, part of the crew. You know, I mean, he's obviously doing illegal shit, Stompanato, but he wasn't an enforcer like people thought. He wasn't a brute. He wasn't a guy who was a beatdown man, because he had other guys doing that for him, other Starkers who were doing that, and were able to beat down different people. Now, interestingly enough, the madam who was running this whole operation was named Brenda Allen. And Brenda Allen is the madam who, what blows this thing out of proportion, out of the scandal, is the fact that the police begin to have sex with the prostitutes. And if you look at LA Confidential, Bud White with Kim Basinger happened in real life. That's the people who are on that intelligence squad begin to get sucked into sexual activity with the high class hookers who were being cut and having plastic surgery to look like Lana Turner and others, and Marilyn Monroe. And here is Lana Turner. That is Lana Turner, as Kevin Spacey faithfully says, inside the Formosa Cafe over here on Santa Monica Boulevard and Formosa, which is shown in the movie LA Confidential, when Guy Pearce says that she's obviously a hooker dressed to look like Lana Turner, and Kevin Spacey laughs and says, no, that is Lana Turner. That is Lana Turner. And Lana Turner, that is Lana Turner in the famous sweater shot. She had made her bones in The Postman Always Rings Twice, but she comes from a nefarious past. Her father was killed by the mob in the Midwest. Her mother, stage mom, brings her out to Hollywood at the age of 16. We're across the street from the studio. She's drinking a soda. And one of the famous producers says, would you like to be in pictures? And she says, famously, I'm going to have to ask my mom. And pretty soon, Lana Turner, who never paid dues, never paid casting couch dues, never worked her way up the ladder. She went from drinking a soda to being Lana Turner. And I think her real name was Ellen Turner or something like that. But she becomes Lana Turner, becomes a bleach blonde, but has this thing on her chest there, as you see. And the rest is kind of history in terms of her career. But Lana Turner is an alcoholic, and her career and her looks begin to decline in the 50s. And she ends up with some nefarious cats herself, one of them being Johnny Stompanato. And Johnny Stompanato and her have an incredibly heated and romantic relationship. She's got a 14-year-old daughter from another guy named Stephen Crane. There's the daughter on the left. That's Cheryl Crane. That's her at 14. Cheryl Crane is sexually abused by some of Lana Turner's lovers in the past. Those are the attorneys in back of her. And that's Lana Turner on the right. And this is going to be at the hearing that we're going to get into, because Lana Turner performs at this hearing. She should have won an Oscar for this hearing. And you say, well, what is the hearing about? Mickey Cohen's at the hearing, and all these different people come to testify because she is in this incredible, violent but romantic relationship, and she's madly in love with Johnny Stompanato, and vice versa. Johnny Stompanato goes all the way to England. She's working on a film in England, and Johnny Stompanato and her get into another fight on the set of the movie. And the actor in the movie punches Johnny Stompanato in the face, knocking him unconscious. That actor was named Sean Connery, Bond, James Bond. And Stompanato is removed by England's officials and put on a plane back to California because of that incident. But it doesn't stop Lana Turner. And they fight. You know, it's a two-sided thing. They're both fighting. And this daughter, Cheryl Crane, according to what Lana Turner said, came into the bedroom while Johnny Stompanato was threatening Lana Turner and stabs him with a giant butcher knife in the stomach, killing Johnny Stompanato. Okay. And people are going, really? That's kind of an odd thing to see. But there's one guy who doesn't buy it, and that's Mickey Cohen, because he says there is no way that Johnny Stompanato would allow a 14-year-old girl with a butcher knife to just stab him in the stomach. And obviously there's Stompanato in the casket there, and that's Mickey losing his best friend. So Mickey Cohen takes it upon himself to figure out what happened. And he goes and testifies at the hearing, and he produces, through his nefarious manipulations, he somehow gets a hold of the love letters between the two of them, between Lana Turner and Stompanato, and gives them to the media. And the media has a feeding frenzy with these love letters, because it's clear in the love letters that Lana Turner loves this guy and vice versa. Those letters, which I'm going to post on Locals for members only, are, all of a sudden you're interested, Hunley.
No, I got to check in every once in a while.
No, all of a sudden Hunley's, hey.
There's a reason I'm here finally.
I know.
God.
So, okay. So it turns out, according to Mickey Cohen, they found out that Lana Turner went to the hardware store and bought that butcher knife 3 days before the murder. And a very interesting thing happens, that he may have been drugged, Stompanato, laying in bed. There's no blood, no fighting, nothing. There's no scene of any kind of fighting in that death room. And turns out that she blames it, or the daughter takes the rap, saying that he was abusing her mother. And the fact of the matter is that Lana Turner, while he was sleeping, supposedly, according to Mickey Cohen, drugged out, stabbed him in the chest, killing him laying in bed right next to her. That, how cold that is. That was Mickey Cohen's contention. And a lot of people believed that was the truth of this killing. The idea that this girl, 14 years old, was able to take a butcher knife and sneak in and start stabbing this giant, muscle man. And he never fought back, never grabbed her arm, nothing. It's crazy. Well, Mickey Cohen hates Lana Turner's guts. And he says, if she would have done the right thing, I would never have gone to war with her. And now the rest of the country, the publicists for the studios begin to spin this yarn about Cheryl Crane, the 14-year-old daughter, doing this. This comes out after. It's kind of like when Jack Ruby, his attorney, said you killed him to help Mrs. Kennedy not have to come back to Dallas for the trial. And Ruby went, really? Okay. So they put out this spin, and there's a hearing where Lana Turner, I don't know if you have the video on this, but the video is available. I could put it on Locals. Lana Turner, excuse me?
Yeah, definitely put it on Locals.
Oh, no, Lana Turner testifies and starts weeping. And you could see that she's acting. And then the daughter testifies, and, Mickey Cohen's there, and it's a whole big Megillah. It's a hearing about the killing. It's not a court case. It's a hearing from the coroner's office or something. But it was filmed. The media was in there, and the whole thing was staged by the studios. I mean, it was amazing production. And Lana Turner gets away with it, as does the daughter. The daughter is charged with defending her mother, a self-defense kind of a thing, and nobody goes anywhere.
Crazy.
But she did love him quite a bit. She really did. And vice versa. They were madly in love with each other. Anyway, so the other guy in this thing is Johnny Roselli. So Johnny Roselli also wants to be a producer. Johnny Stompanato wanted to be a producer. These are not, dude, it's kind of like Get Shorty with John Travolta, right? It's like Get Shorty, comes in. And in fact, the guy who should have played Mickey Cohen in all of these movies, and you see Sean Penn played him in Gangster Squad, which is not very good. And there's Harvey Keitel, who plays him very well, and he was the best of the Mickey Cohens. And there's Paul Guilfoyle, I think, plays him in L.A. Confidential. There's Paul Guilfoyle at the very beginning when Danny DeVito is doing the voiceover. You see, here's Sean Penn. This is a crazy look. I don't know what Sean Penn's getting at here, but the guy who should have played him was Danny DeVito. That would have been the ultimate, guy to play him was DeVito, or like we said, Joe Pesci. Like we were talking about before the show. I mean, Joe Pesci would have been an incredible.
Why would you say Danny DeVito?
Obviously. Look at that. Okay, so this is the second trip to Alcatraz. Now he gets set up. The guys who are following him, he's trying to make good to the IRS, but this is very similar to what's happening today. The IRS says you owe us X amount of money. And he goes, okay, send me a bill. right? And they go, no bill. You're going to jail. And it's kind of a weird gray area. I don't understand. I have to talk to Barnes about this. Like, I don't understand how the IRS could say to some people, we're not accepting your money. You're going to jail, when we say there's no debtor prisons. And people are perfectly willing, like Manafort and Trump or whoever, to say, whatever, you want to redo my taxes? Okay. That's the way you want to play. But then they say, no, we're not going to take your money. You got to go to prison.
There's a weird reason for that.
Right.
Somebody's just talking about Shakira today.
Right.
Because I guess Spain is trying to put her in prison.
Yeah, but that's their laws over there.
No. But they were saying is that it's as an example. So they can't be like, okay, well, they'll never pay their taxes. Then you get on their case and say, oh, here you go. And here's a check. They deliberately put them in prison just to say, don't you dare. We will lock your ass up if you don't pay. To scare people. Right. I don't know. Could be.
I don't know either. But we'll talk to Robert about it because, and by the way, no one loves Shakira more than me. I just want to put that out there. I am one of her biggest fans of all time. But that being said, getting back to there's a situation where Mickey Cohen gets out of Alcatraz, goes to Alcatraz, and he's hit on the head with a lead pipe. He's attacked by some mental patient in Alcatraz, and he's in a coma for 21 days. They split his skull open. A guy comes up for no reason, hits him from behind with a lead pipe, ends up going to Springfield, Missouri, the same hospital that used to have General Walker in it from an earlier episode. Another episode with General Walker ends up in that Springfield, Missouri. They do brain surgery on Mickey Cohen. He's in a coma for 21 days, and he walks out of prison. It doesn't even faze him. And he goes back to this lifestyle after 21 days in a coma and having brain surgery. So nothing kills this guy is what I'm saying. Yeah, here he is. This is when I think he's going to Alcatraz, not when he's getting out, but this is going to Alcatraz. In Alcatraz, he runs the place also. He lives large, has all the food sent to him, luxury, a jail cell. And here's the important thing he said. They allowed him to take showers nonstop and for his OCD. And he said, I would have lost my mind and flipped my lid because you're only allowed a shower a week, and I could not live like that. So he spread around the money to allow him to take 3 or 4 showers a day while in Alcatraz. So the OCD doesn't go away, but his arch nemesis is Guy Pearce, who is now the chief of police. Guy Pearce, obviously the Australian actor, from LA Confidential, becomes William Parker in real life, the chief of police. There's William Parker on the left, Guy Pearce portrayed in the movie in LA Confidential. So Parker, who has a Purple Heart, is a war hero. He grew up in a town called Deadwood, Eric. I don't know if you ever heard of that in the Midwest.
Maybe.
So Parker's a straight shooter, but Parker hires intelligence units. He wiretaps. He becomes a complete psychopath, and he's a total alcoholic, according to everyone in the LAPD. They drive him home at night. He's just a rambling maniac, drinking around the clock, and he's a total alcoholic. And Mickey Cohen knows this. Mickey Cohen is invited on. This is his arch nemesis. This guy, Parker, hooks up with Robert Kennedy to take down Mickey Cohen illegally. There's no way they could get Mickey Cohen, so they decide to illegally get Mickey Cohen. So Mickey Cohen goes on a show with a guy named Mike Wallace in New York. This is before 60 Minutes. Mike Wallace had a show on ABC, and it was an interview show. And in that interview, Mickey Cohen says some things about Chief Parker. I don't know if you have that video, but let him speak for himself.
I don't.
Okay, nice one.
Locals.
Okay.
We talked about it earlier.
Thanks for stopping by. So anyway, so in that video, he calls him a degenerate alcoholic, a pervert, all this different stuff. In the live, it's a live nightly show, right? So Parker flips out and he sues ABC and Mike Wallace and settles for like $700,000 in today's money. And the other police chief, captain, who's mentioned, he gets like $300,000. Okay. So Parker begins to bust Mickey Cohen for jaywalking, for being with any felons, for being, all of the little picayune things that could possibly harass him from doing. And Mickey Cohen says, I've gone straight. He always says, I've gone straight. And he opens up a flower shop on Sunset and he's selling flowers, but he's still doing all his nefarious things on the side, you know, and they try to really nail him. And eventually the IRS, like Al Capone, puts him in jail for tax evasion. And that's a 10-year to 15-year sentence in Alcatraz. And that was the big, he that's what I was saying before. He did about, I want to say 5 years, 7 years. He comes out, it's the 1970s, and everything's different, Eric. The Vietnam War is going on. There's hippies. I mean, in other words, it's like a time machine has gone by and everything's changed except for him. Except for him. Yeah, and everything is different now. So he tries to adjust and gets an apartment again in Brentwood and brings in the giant hotel hot water heater into the apartment and begins, his attempt to reconstruct his life. And the reconstruction of his life is the new Mickey Cohen. He sells a book deal, autobiography. He's got guys following him around who want to make movies of his life. He sells his life story, I think, numerous times. He has all kinds of people involved. Ben Hecht is going with him. Ben Hecht is right. And he's following him down to Mexico to go to the bullfights. So he's living pretty large again when he gets out of Alcatraz. His wife has now divorced him. She's bitter that she sees him with jewelry on and all kinds of stuff. She doesn't know how he's getting it, but she wants a part of it, and he ain't giving it up.
Figures.
Anyway, so ABC News and Philip Morris Tobacco settles the Mickey Cohen lawsuit with Chief Parker. And he was not wrong in what he was saying. He was not wrong. Mickey Cohen was telling the truth about Chief Parker, and Chief Parker got the settlement, but Chief Parker's reputation was destroyed. And that's what Mickey Cohen wanted to do on national TV. And not on his own. This was from Mike Wallace, who's going like, come on, Mickey, you know things that we don't know. Come on, tell us. So Mickey goes, okay, I'll tell you. Want to know the truth? The chief of police is a degenerate, pervert, alcoholic. Imagine seeing that on the news. You know, you go, whoa, what the hell's this all about? So anyway, so Johnny Roselli also wants to be a producer. What's this? Hold on, just coming in. Breaking news.
Might be something here.
This is it, Hunley.
Time than somebody else would have, because I have a police chief in Los Angeles, California, who happens to be a sadistic degenerate. This man has no respect for decency. He's a known alcoholic. He's been disgusting, and he's a known degenerate. In other words, he's a sadistic degenerate of the worst type.
Seems clear.
That was great. Thanks, Eric. That was great. I mean, that's a great portrayal. So when Mickey gets out, he hires an attorney to represent him named Paul Caruso. And Paul Caruso has a son named Carrie Caruso, is a friend of mine, and my attorney, actually. So his son, Paul Caruso, is the top attorney in L.A. His son is an attorney now. This is Paul Caruso, the number one guy. He's like the Melvin Belli of Los Angeles. Or the F. Lee Bailey in Massachusetts. That's what Paul Caruso was in L.A., a revered attorney. He ends up in the Manson case, representing an obscure figure named Susan Atkins, which is a show for another day. But Paul Caruso becomes the attorney for Mickey Cohen. And Mickey Cohen runs up a bill of about $63,000. So Paul Caruso wants to get paid. This is him with Aragon, the fighter. Golden Boy Aragon from a previous trial where they said Aragon had fixed a fight, and he got Aragon off of that charge. But yeah, Caruso's on the right there, and he is owed $63,000 from Mickey Cohen. And Mickey Cohen says, hey, why don't you come over and I'll pay you? And he goes, he knows that it's not going to go well. So he gets in his car and he drives over to Brentwood to get the money from Mickey Cohen. And there's Mickey Cohen with a .38 police revolver in his hand saying, you want your effing money? And he realizes he's about to get shot. And he grabs, this is really weird. He sees out of the corner of his eye Mickey Cohen's sister in the little cubbyhole office, and he grabs her as a human shield, Eric, and he backs out slowly with his arm around his sister's neck, and backs out slowly with his sister as his human shield, and gets into his car and drives away with his own life. And you go, oh, okay, that's weird. The next day, he gets a call from a guy, and it's Mickey Cohen, but he won't say it's Mickey Cohen, but it's him. And he says, Mickey told me to call you. He wants to make up to you, but you're going to have to pay him $1,000 to make this go away. Right? So that's $10,000 in modern money. So Caruso, who's a straight edge attorney, says, I don't pay extortion. I'm sorry. And he says, well, we'll see about that. Right? So LAPD, who he called, who went over to Mickey Cohen's house and did nothing, now end up for years, as my friend Carrie told me, in his kitchen. As they were raising the family, LAPD had a cop in the kitchen for 5 years as they were growing up and going to school to prevent Mickey Cohen from killing their father, Paul Caruso, which is where I come into this story. And I've known this story from Carrie for years, but I'm telling it at the end because it's in the end chronologically, but it's also a personal story about me and learning this from Carrie Caruso about his father, which I always thought was a hair-raising story. But he said that the cops were their friends and they would play ball with them and eat breakfast with them, but there was always a permanent LAPD cop in their kitchen.
So what happened when he died?
When Mickey died?
Yeah,
the cops went away. The cops went away.
It's like a phone call. It's like, okay, well, we're done.
That was it. They're done. They were done.
That would be so disconcerting, though. I mean, it's like you got somebody in your life who's there every day, and
I think the kids were crushed. Yeah, he had a number of brothers and sisters. Yeah, I don't think they were happy about that because they said they were used to it of the cops being in the kitchen and doing whatever they did, to make themselves, not interfere with their lives, but. Paul Caruso is a very big attorney. As I say, he was a very powerful attorney, and it makes sense that LAPD would do that. I don't know what other protection he had himself, but having the cop in the kitchen every morning was kind of interesting. And I remember Carrie telling me this story, and I went, oh, that's unusual, because they were Italians who had come from back east years before. I mean, Carrie was born here, and his brother, he's got a bunch of brothers. One of them's a DA now, and a bunch of different brothers. But nevertheless, it's fine. I just saw his ex-wife yesterday, one of his ex-wives. Anyway, so the reality of it is this story is kind of personal in that regard with Paul Caruso. But you see how the tentacles of Mickey Cohen made him the king of Los Angeles. It really made him out to be bigger than Al Capone, bigger than Bugsy Siegel. His reign went on for so many years, involving so many millions of dollars, and never killed. He died in his sleep. He had stomach cancer. He passed away in his 60s, and never ended up going back to jail. And he led a quiet life. But he was still a gangster. At the end, he was
quiet, neurotic life.
But when the cops get busted for all of these shenanigans with the prostitutes, with the high-end prostitutes, it puts LA off the map as a gangster city, because not only do the gangsters have to leave, the police who were protecting them had to leave because they had no more LAPD protection. Those corrupt cops couldn't just live in the city anymore. They fled to a place called Las Vegas themselves, the cops who were fired by LAPD. And the mobsters, to answer your question from the beginning of the show, the mobsters all relocated to a place called Las Vegas. And that was the vacuum sound of the mobsters leaving LA, because there's no mobsters here now. There were no mobsters in the 70s, 80s, 90s. They don't exist here. They all got sucked out because they couldn't get protection from LAPD any longer, Eric. That was the reason they couldn't operate here any longer. You couldn't operate without protection. Now, Robert has told me about some of his clients involved in some shenanigans I didn't know about in the 90s and 2000s involving LAPD, but that's a story for another day, or maybe his own hush-hush, whatever he wants to do with that. So I'm not going to come to his job and kick the shovel out of his hand. But the reality of it is this is such a Hollywood story. And the Mickey Cohen story is so huge. And it's amazing to me that it was never really covered by Hollywood, and Mickey Cohen tried to sell his own story, and they wouldn't do it because it involved too many of them. That's why he couldn't get his own movie made, was because they're in it, and the producers didn't want to touch it. And I think to this day, that's why the movie of Mickey Cohen has never been made. And it is a great movie. It is the Battle of Sunset Strip. I think Legs McNeil and I tried to get this made in the early 2000s. Legs had written a piece for Detail magazine on Candy Bar. And I said, this is a movie, Legs. And we tried, and we didn't get anywhere. And I didn't understand why. But now I kind of understand why. It involves too many of legitimate people.
Maybe now,
Johnny Roselli had optioned a book called The End of the Santa Fe Trail, and he wanted to be a producer. Johnny Stompanato was going to be a producer. These were guys who wanted to become producers, and nobody could really stop them. They had money, they had actresses, they had influence, and I think at the end of the day, they scared the living shit out of the moguls. You know what I mean? And Roselli ends up in a barrel in a 55-gallon drum in Biscayne Bay. That's how it ends up for Johnny Roselli. And Johnny Roselli has as much gravitas in Hollywood as Bugsy Siegel had. Wow. I mean, he was playing croquet with them. He was at the Wilshire Country Club playing golf. These are not greasy mobsters, Eric. They intertwined with these incredibly powerful Hollywood people.
Amazing.
And what's the Yiddish word of the day? Just to wrap
Sharka.
up. No, starker. Starker. Tough guy. Starker. Every week we're going to have a Yiddish word of the day.
Yeah, you keep promising. Then you forget.
Happy New Year, everybody. What do you want to do now, Hunley?
What are we going to do now? Well, first, you got a little bit of support. Thank you for Bill Kinsella.
I like this guy. You men are better than any of the. Oh, well, who knows who you had? You might have had some weirdos. I mean, I had Norm Mizell, who was my football line coach, who brought in a mouse one day and built a guillotine out of pencils and a razor blade to explain the French Revolution and cut the mouse's head off with his homemade guillotine. That was my world history teacher, and he was better than me.
I'd say he's pretty good. Yeah, we're not talking about that. And we got Pasha. Hoi polloi.
Hoity-toity. We didn't say. I never say hoity-toity. Hoi polloi. I could say hoity-toity. I never really got that one. Sounds like something out of a Betty Boop cartoon.
Like somebody wasn't comfortable saying hoi polloi.
Yeah.
This is important, folks.
What?
This one's important, and for this, I have to pull out the very important overlay.
Oh, thank God! I just want to explain something about this because somebody hit me to this thing. We have so many different subjects, Eric and I, that people's feeds get fed what they are into, and because of that, this affects our subscription numbers. In other words, if you just are into JFK, your feed from YouTube is just going to be JFK. The JFK fan is not going to know about Baldwin. It's not going to know about any of this stuff. Same thing as the Baldwin people are not going to know because the YouTube algorithm, right, Eric?
But they can stick around. They can learn it. This is important, guys, because look at this.
What?
Hinckley has 30.5 subs.
Right.
We are at 30.
Oh,
1,400 and change
in the battle of Huntley versus Hinckley.
No, well, damn, we got to pass Hinckley.
We got to pass Hinckley.
Hinckley now, Frito later.
Let me tell you something. Hinckley has run out of merch. That's what he posted yesterday on Twitter. He sold all his T-shirts, and now he's just down to stickers. So it's a dark days for Hinckley. And he's going to be performing near where Eric lives in a Hinckley concert.
Right. Well, we still have to be ahead of Hinckley.
We got to be ahead.
This is important.
No, but I'm saying
First Hinckley,
the reason
Frito,
you have to hit the notifications is where I was going with this thing. Mm-hmm. Because not just subscribing, it's about the notifications too, folks, because you have to be notified because it may be stuff that's not normally in your feed. You may not have any gangster shit in your feed, and all of a sudden this Mickey Cohen thing does not appear because you've never watched a gangster video on YouTube. So they're not going to feed you this unless you do the notifications bell, right, Eric?
Yep.
I'm figuring this game out. I'm figuring this out, honey.
Even that is not guaranteed. And that's where you could follow Locals for free on structure.locals.com. Mark's going to be putting up letters, things like that. That's if you want to additionally support.
Right.
But you can also follow me on Twitter at Hunley Eric. I do post the show every day that is coming out. Also recommend following Secret McSquirrel. I think is Secret Squizzer on Twitter.
10% off of something. Okay. Well, I just want to thank the people for the book fund who allowed me to get this book, Mickey Cohen, through the PayPal book fund, which is turning out to be the best thing that ever happened because it makes me read the books before the show, which gives me all this crazy information. I actually bought one book on CD, which I never do, but I was reading so much stuff on Mickey Cohen. We'll hopefully put the list of books down below. I'll give you the sources of what I'm saying here, so you don't think it's bubamaisis, which will be the Yiddish word for the next show, bubamaisis, which means bullshit.
We've had bubamaisis before.
I think that's an older word.
I have a bad memory, so
we have it. We never had Starka. I would have remembered Starka.
Starka makes me think Starkers for some reason.
No, guys are Stark. It's really Stark.
Starks. Yeah, I don't know. Get to work on that.
Unless you're Yiddish.
No,
all right.
Exactly.
So what do you got? You got super chats. You got these dogs. Is this the dog?
Oswald. This is Oswald.
I bought a bunch of crap because you told me it was on sale yesterday. By the way, Eric.
And it was.
I know. No, it was. I bought hat. I'm going to give it away. Obviously, hats and t-shirt. I bought what else? I bought the tie-dye thing, and it comes in 5 colors. The Grateful Dead shirt. I bought one of those. A couple more.
You bought the bear.
I bought the bear. Yeah, I bought the bear. I think I bought the bear. I think I did. I don't remember.
I saw this order come in.
I had
a feeling that was you.
Okay. So I did buy the bear then. The grow bear. That I'll put that up when I get it in the mail. I'll put it up on screen. You know.
Definitely. Then we'll have a competition with the real, great one, Oswald versus the pedestrian
some
bear.
woman was asking what's the name of the dog, and I said it's Oswald, and she said, then what's the name of the bear? I said I don't know. Grow bear.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's all we have. That's all we have. Now, you're saying that the shirt you're wearing, I forgot to buy that shirt. I'm going to buy that shirt too. Or maybe I did order it.
I don't know. It's a polo. It's available. Different.
I got to get the
different
polo.
colors.
I don't know about the bucket hat so much, but I'm going to get the polo. And there's a lot of new stuff with the purple cup that what's her name did.
Ziggy's. Yeah, Ziggy grabbed some cups.
There's a purple cup. A whole mess of stuff with a purple cup.
Yeah,
you could take a sticker and put it on there, right, or something. Or
I'm not sure what Ziggy's doing. I'm kind of like she's put it out there looking for ideas from people. I support it. It's awesome.
Right. So we covered the Grateful Dead. That was fun. Surprise hit. I'm surprised even with the copyright stuff how well it's done, Eric. And I think the Mickey Cohen thing will do pretty well too. But on Friday, what do we have?
Back to Baldwin.
Oh, this is going to be good, Hunley. You didn't tell me about this. We're going back in. We're going back into the investigation, Hunley.
Back to Baldwin.
Oh, this is going to be good. You're saying that there's stuff happening now that on Friday we will be able to speak more cleanly and clearly about some secret stuff that you're cooking up.
Possibly. We don't know.
Okay. We don't know.
We'll see. And then between now and Friday, more could happen. So it gives a little bit of breathing room to see.
Right. To dig out some more information.
Does property sell? Doesn't it sell? We hear from anybody? Are there any bottles out there? Are there any bottles? I don't know. Some bottles are rumored to be floating in. I don't know if they.
This is going to be explosive on Friday. I got a good feeling about this. Hopefully.
Rolf.
What's this?
Rolf got in. By the way, Rolf sent us a super chat that I missed last show. Thank you, Rolf. And I do apologize. I missed it. Somehow it was mixed in the mess.
Okay. One time I had to go to 14th Street. I was so broke. I was living in my friend's apartment who didn't know I was living in it. He had gone overseas and I was living in that apartment. Didn't have any money. And I walked all the way from 96 in Columbus down to 14th Street to sell my blood for $14. There was a bunch of homeless guys down there selling their blood also. And I was so exhausted from the trip that they rejected my blood. And I was being mocked by homeless guys for not having blood to sell for $14 to that blood bank, which just reminded me of that when he said plasma. And I had to go all the way back uptown without the $14 for selling my blood. So let that be a lesson to you. If you're trying to sell your blood, do not walk 100 blocks because they're not going to take your blood. It's probably going to be deoxygenated at that point.
Well, no, there's a trick to it.
What?
Because I used to sell plasma twice a week. I was so broke.
Okay, look at this. Again, fellow spirit.
I have a scar.
Go, Hunley.
A permanent scar from it.
Right, okay.
But the trick is this.
What?
You have to squeeze your stomach and
What?
flex your stomach, and that causes your blood pressure to go up enough that they feel safe to draw it.
I had no idea. I
I was not leaving without the cash, dude.
No, I had to leave
way.
without the cash. I had to leave without the cash, and I was really infuriated. I mean, I think I snuck on a train and got home on the train, but boy, I was bitter, and I was being mocked by the homeless, which really exacerbated the entire affair.
Yep, there's a reason that I got into the Army, dude.
I
I did want to get a paycheck. So
we learned a lot today from Hunley.
There you go.
Hunley versus Hinckley is going to be a new celebrity challenge.
I don't know. Are we there yet, folks? Come on. There's enough.
I don't understand.
People watching.
What is Hinckley's goal? What is his ultimate goal, Hinckley?
I don't know.
I asked him on Twitter. I said,
"Did he answer?"
Do you think he didn't answer me? But I asked him on Twitter. I said, "Do you think it's possible for you to come out of retirement within the next 2 years?" So I got no response from Hinckley. Maybe it's a violation of his parole. I mean, I probably didn't know how to take it, but that's what I think. I'm going to troll the guy and see if we can get him to say something crazy. Or maybe we should have him on the show. I don't know.
You know what? It's crazy. That might be almost.
He might be crazy enough to come on the show.
Oh my God! I wouldn't even know what to say.
You know what? If we tell him he could sing one of his songs, he would probably come on the show. He's probably watching the Grateful Dead episode, thinking, "God, that's a great episode. I wish I could get with these guys. They seem to know music." You know, I mean, is he a kind of Manson-like figure now? Because Manson had all those songs, and Manson wanted to get a record deal, and now Hinckley wants to get a record deal. You know what? Why don't we do an episode of John Hinckley? What are we talking about? We're stupid. Put Hinckley on the list because you got all the MK Ultra crap. There's a lot of stuff. Dude, we got to add Hinckley to the list.
Well, okay. And did you say that he was tortured anyway by Jodie Foster?
Yes, and that'll be part of the episode. Yes, I have some insight into how he was tortured by Jodie Foster and her girlfriends when she was in college. And he would call up on the phone and they would mock him. And he would call back every week and they'd gather around the phone and make all kinds of nasty slights against him. Really cruel, Mean Girls kind of stuff.
All right, so if you guys want this to happen, you got to help us out. He can't have more followers than us. That he has more clout than we do, so we got to pass him.
You know what? He's got name recognition. I mean, he shot the president and we didn't. You know what I'm saying? He's a guy. He shot the sheriff and we didn't do that.
That's true, but we can't really do that.
I know. No, I'm not saying we have to. I'm just saying he's got a leg up because of the name recognition. And you think he's going to get a blue check on Twitter, right? Or no?
Oh, I'm sure if they follow any normal pattern that they've shown. Yeah,
right.
Why not?
Right.
You know, if Barnes with 200,000, they'll make sure he doesn't have one. But you know, Hinckley, you should. Yeah, I'm sure. You know, because we don't want to be confused. We want to make sure that we are actually hearing from the actual John Hinckley.
Right. There might be some bot Hinckley. Yeah.
Well, exactly. No bot Hinckley. And on that note, Baldwin Friday.
Let's do this, Hunley.